Welcome back. This channel, if you'll remember, if you've seen my other videos, is about applying Jnanavada, the ancient Hindu techniques for debating with the objective of uncovering truth rather than winning arguments. And the objective is to cultivate clear thinking with the hope that one can use clear thinking to enhance knowledge, inspiration, and better decision making. Today we're going to be in the inspiration area, showing you how clear thinking can help you with inspiration. And the topic is the hero's journey, overcoming addiction. Now, I have a number of philanthropic interests. There's three of them actually. First, helping poor people accumulate wealth. Second, helping prisoners use the art of parliamentary debating, where the objective is to win an argument. Helping prisoners use the art of parliamentary debating to solve conflicts without violence. And the third is overcoming addiction and empowering addicts to overcome their addiction. So today we're going to talk about the latter and how the hero's journey can help addicts overcome some of their addictions. So I volunteer once a week with addicts to help them overcome their addiction, or at least contribute to their addiction. And I recently met a woman called Mary. Now, Mary is about 52 years old. She has a belief system that says she's a victim. And these things are relative, of course, because we all have privilege over somebody else. 6 out of 7 billion people in the world live on $5 a day or less. Many don't have electricity or running water or indoor bathrooms. So the concept of being a victim is very relative, and it's usually in our head based on our beliefs. But she feels she's a victim, and there's some argument for that. She was brought up in a abusive family, went into the child welfare system, and got married to an abusive husband, was a housewife, raised 3 kids. When she was about 45, the husband left her for a younger woman. What else did Mary say? She was left with the house, but he got custody of the kids. She couldn't pay the payments on the house, and thought that she might get some extra jobs and keep the house. But the problem was that the mortgage was more than the amount of the house. So to sell the house, she would need to cut a check for $100,000. She didn't have $100,000, so she became homeless. When she became homeless, she was exposed to fentanyl, which is a drug that is, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 80 times as powerful as heroin. And she got addicted. And so that's where she is today. So Mary's an interesting lady. And, I shared an idea with her which might have helped her, might have not helped her. I mean, you got to remember, one concept to talk about on this channel is the difference between correlation and causation. Causation is very difficult to prove. Very few things are causally related. If they are, it's hard to determine if they're causally related. But correlation is what we see most of. So she says what I said helped her, but who knows, something else might have helped her. So what I said to Mary is, I get the victim scenario, Mary. I understand from your point of view what your data points are, which is your childhood. The conclusion, the assumption is anybody who has this background is a victim, therefore one is a victim. That's kind of the data point assumption and conclusion in her thinking. And so I told her, now, I'm not denying your pain. I'm not denying the neurosis that you self-medicate for. I mean, the theory of addiction is basically that people are neurotic and they self-medicate to get over that neurosis. What is neurosis? Well, Carl Jung and Freud discussed what that was, and it's basically negative emotion. And I won't define negative emotion, look it up, but it's basically what you think of as negative emotion. And so to get over that negative emotion, which was a result of her trauma, she basically is very prone to addiction. And that's basically why she takes fentanyl. So I said to her, look, I'm not going to deny what you're going through, but let's just cast our eyes on a different prize. Let that prize be self-actualization. All you can be using all of you. Now I want you to get fixated over this image of yourself. And I want you to focus on that and the psychic pleasure of ruminating and being obsessed about that, so that the neural pathways that go from the center of the brain to fentanyl tablets, it's not that they're eliminated, because for addicts it's a very strong connection. They see the drug, their brain says pleasure, dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin. But I want you to replace that neural connection. I want you to have something else that gives you pleasure, and that vision of self-actualization is what I want you to replace your current source of pleasure. So don't give up this view of victimhood, but add to it another belief. And that belief is the hero's journey. Now, if you look at the way screenwriters write screenplays, they have basically models that they use. So, for example, the movie Manhattan by Woody Allen, it was not a translation of a book into a movie. It was an actual screenplay started from scratch. So what happens? They get in a room, they start using paradigms like Boy Meets Girl or Horatio Alger, Rags to Riches. Well, one of those structures, story structures, is called the hero's journey. There's a protagonist, there is a goal, there is or are a set of obstacles which they overcome, and once they overcome those obstacles and reach the goal, they're a transformed person. That's the storyline. And so what I said to Mary is, Mary, I've thought about it, I've interacted with a ton of addicts, different issues, alcoholism, fentanyl, heroin, uppers, downers, whatever, painkillers. And in my view, they are part of a hero's journey, right, Mary? Like, you are the protagonist in your own story. Your goal is sobriety. I mean, your ultimate goal is self-actualization, and I want you to visualize that and move towards it. But there are many steps that you go through towards self-actualization. So the first one is probably stopping being an addict, or at least managing that and being in recovery. So your ability to deal day to day with the relapses and the hassles and losing your family, losing your job, although she never had a job, but addicts often lose their jobs, there's a lot of pain there, but to overcome that is a heroic battle. And if you go down for the count, at least you have that bottle. We all die. The question is when and why. So we don't know the when, but we can always give a why. So if you die in this battle against addiction, Mary, you will have died with meaning. Like the samurai used to die with meaning. If you look at the great samurai text Hagekuri, it's all about creating Bushido and dying with Bushido, living a lifestyle and dying on the battlefield, because it gave them meaning. So I'm not advocating she die, but worst case scenario, she dies, but at least she's dying fighting the good fight. And then you are a hero when you achieve your sobriety because you've overcome obstacles. And then, Mary, you will have actually gained some wisdom and self-knowledge through the process. Because there's a lot of work if you go to an organization like Narcotics Anonymous or Alcoholics Anonymous. It's a lot of work to understand the sources of your neurosis, the negative emotions, and deal with those. And so by the time you become sober, if you become sober, you will have gained some self-insight. So that's exactly the hero's journey. So Mary, we've been having these conversations for a while. Mary came to me one day and I could hardly recognize her. She said, I got up this morning early, I had a shower, I fixed my hair, and I'm going to try to look for a job. And I said, wow. And she said, what you said made a difference. I like painting, I like photography, she listed a bunch of stuff she likes, and she goes, I want to be that person who likes these things. I want to be that person I once was that enjoys nurturing people. Maybe I'll volunteer, etc., etc. So she's cultivated that image of the goal, which is self-actualization, and she realizes that a step in that goal is becoming sober. And so that gave me a buzz. Now, is there causation? Who knows? What I do know is there's some correlation. I said it. She subsequently had this change. Maybe the change won't last. Maybe she'll relapse. But hopefully I've planted a seed that will help her. So what's the takeaway? The takeaway is when we see a data point, we filter the meaning through beliefs. And if there's multiple correlations for something, which correlation we want to believe in will influence our assumption, which in turn will influence our conclusion. So changing your beliefs can actually change your life. In this case, Mary was given a different story, the story of the hero's journey, and it changed her beliefs. And more importantly, took her focus away from her pain and victimhood, which she's working on in Narcotics Anonymous, but into a vision of the future that gives her pleasure. And she's cultivating that vision. She's adding line items to that vision. I told her to even write it down and to refine it and reflect on it. So that's the video for today. I'll be traveling to New York City later today, then Zurich, then Calcutta. So hopefully the next video will be from one of these places.